Rock stars, songwriters, the sidemen and women, music producers, and more join Dayna Steele each week to talk about the rock business. Slide into the booth and join the conversation. This is Dayna's Diner on Houston Radio Platinum.
Welcome to Dayna's Diner, a casual conversation with somebody in the music business. It may be a rock star, it may be a sideman or sidewoman, it may be somebody driving the bus, or it may be somebody like Paul Korzilus, which I could take the entire 20, 30 minutes just to introduce you and all the ways we know each other. And all the
go ahead, feel free.
So,
makes my job easier.
The reason I called Paul and asked him to be on Dayna's Diner is I am a huge, huge fan of the JBJ Soul Kitchen, the JBJ Soul Foundation. It is John Bon Jovi and his wife and their friends and families give back project, and we're going to talk about that. But Paul goes back so much farther. We're going to go back to a guest I had on several episodes ago, and that is Wally Verson. And Wally's another one where we tried to pin it down to what was the first band we met, which one was he working with, and we couldn't quite figure it out. But you and Wally were football players at Northwestern.
That we were offensive linemen, a couple of years apart. I was a little bit older, but I'm still better looking, by the way. So that was easy enough. And, you know, we both forged our way into the music business. So Northwestern was a great foundation. Being an offensive lineman was a great foundation. And I launched really right out of college, went on the road with Queen. And then Wally followed me a couple of years later when I moved on to Cheap Trick. So it worked out really good.
Which is where we met with Cheap Trick.
Yes, without a doubt. There was plenty of time spent at your station with you at shows because Houston really was almost the center of the universe for anything in the Southwest. We would land at Houston, rent a car, Lincoln Continental, with for $29.95 a day for budget, and then we would drive the great state of Texas, all the roads, and that was it. $30 a day for a nice big Lincoln, and away we went. Did every venue you could possibly do, but it's so many places in Texas, it's unbelievable.
And eventually we'll fast forward to your work with Bon Jovi. I got to tell you, you guys watching Thank You, Good Night, the new documentary, has just brought back so many incredible memories of that young band 40 years ago, that wild band. And then, you know, the different promotions that we did. I think there was even one night where it was join Dayna and John at Rick's Cabaret, which was the premier topless bar. And I just remember, you know, it was like the whole band and the record guys and everything. I'm not even sure how I got talked into that. But of course, I knew all the dancers because they all would come hang out at the radio station with the morning team.
Of course.
And but John was just so embarrassed. He was so worried about me. They were wild, but he was also such a gentleman. And he was just so concerned. And I was like, John, it's okay. Just do what you got to do to, you know, do the promotion.
Get the record played, sell the tickets, whatever it takes. No, Houston, you know, is and always has been really a centerpiece for, I think, music in all genres. And I think KLOL was one of the best stations. There was also a video channel that was headquartered there too that competed against MTV and VH1. And you know, it was a lot of opportunity. It was in, you know, we look at the venues we started off in and worked our way up to the modern day venues. It's incredible.
And I cannot recommend the documentary enough. I was telling my husband last night, we were watching the final episode. I saved that for last night since I knew you and I were going to be talking today. And at one point I just paused it and I looked at my husband and he said, "What?" I went, "You know, sometimes I forget that I played a part in all this, that I wasn't just a fan." And immersing myself in that documentary last night, it was like, wait a minute, I was a fan, but I was there. I was on those buses, I was on those planes, I was in those backstage, I was doing those in stores, and it just brought back a lot of memories to watch all that. But more than anything, Paul, I've really been following the JBJ Soul Kitchen the last few years. And thanks to you, I've learned a lot more about the JBJ Soul Foundation and what you guys are doing for the unfed and the unhoused. So take me back to, how did John and Dorothea start this? Where did this come from?
John Bon Jovi was in Philadelphia, staying at one of the co-founders of Arena Football League, Craig, and he was looking out. It was a cold winter day, and the hotel that Craig owned was the Ritz-Carlton. It overlooks the City Hall, one of the most magnificent city halls in the United States. And John saw people sleeping on the doorsteps of City Hall in Philadelphia, the cradle of our Constitution, et cetera, and said, this just isn't right. And he's turned to his friend Obie O'Brien and said, Obie, we need to do something. Obie's native of Philadelphia. Bon Jovi's second record, 7,800 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature that rock melts, as you found out in the documentary, was also recorded there, where Obie owned the recording studio. And because it was close by to John's parents, every Sunday his dad would come down with their special pasta sauce and special pasta, macaroni, as they say, and feed them. So John just really felt this need to do something fast. And Obie connected with Sister Mary, who has an amazing foundation already established. And we knew that we're not going to be experts in this field. Talk about touring, talk about music, talk about whatever. Sure, we're experts. And so we needed help. And she was kind enough to let us in, and we became fast friends. And she's on our board and very important, gives us that real good grounding. But that's where it started, a cold, wintry day. And that's where the foundation started. It started underneath the John Bon Jovi, the Soul Foundation Arena Football League team. We knew that we were competing against some major sports teams, and we needed to stand out. We needed to be different, and we needed to show the community we weren't just there as a fly-by-night operation, that we planned on being very, very involved. Now, we didn't necessarily start off just in the unhoused space or the food space. We were helping out with playgrounds, in Camden, New Jersey, just across the river, and a city that's had some issues, but has been repaired, has worked out. And that's really the genesis of it. And over the many, many years that we've been operational, we've been able to partner with many people, locally, regionally, as well as globally, and be able to come up with a great plan. So we're at a place right now with 2 primary restaurants, soul kitchens, food outreach to universities. And as you and I discussed before, Dayna, I had no idea there was a food insecurity issue at universities, but there is. I guess it makes sense. And it's really just continued to grow. So we don't want to be the biggest foundation on earth. In fact, in a perfect world, we put ourselves out of business, because if there were no unhoused and there were no food insecurities, we would literally be able to go out of business. Unfortunately, the trend over the last several years, probably starting with Superstorm Sandy, leading into, the pandemic, and coming out of the pandemic, we've actually been feeding more and housing more than ever. And that's the wrong direction of where we want to go. But nonetheless, we're going to do our best to correct that downturn or upturn, however you want to look at it.
We've been very fortunate in Houston in that we had a 4-time mayor who finally just maxed out. She couldn't serve anymore, Anise Parker, who really understood that one of the first ways you solve this problem, because we have a lot of unhoused homeless here in the Palm Springs area and in Houston. I go back and forth between the 2 places. But Anise was like, housing is first. Get them into housing, get them fed, and then we can worry about everything else. So, we've been able to do a lot in Houston, but there's still so many cities all over the areas, all over the country. Explain the concept of the Soul Kitchen and how it works, because that's what first caught my attention. And I have just I want to be responsible for opening number 3 or number 4 somewhere in this country someday.
We're able to, we've worked it so, because we have a bunch of professionals who volunteer and help out, and we've been able to, we're ready to open up anywhere. We almost opened up in Memphis. That came very close. But the restaurant business is tough, especially when you give away 64% of your meals. But the idea is to dine with dignity. When you come into our restaurants, you're seated by a hostess or host, and the table has a tablecloth on it. It has actual proper china and ceramic and utensils, metal utensils, cloth napkins, I serve the coffee typically when I'm there. That's, kind of my deal, and engage in conversations. And the menu is presented with beautiful three courses, a lot of options. Many of the items on the menu do come from our garden if it's on the vegetable side or fruit side. We have amazing support from local grocery chain that really helps us out incredibly. And everything is fresh, everything is prepared to order, and you dine with dignity. There's no prices on the menu whatsoever. Now, if you are able to pay for it, you can pay whatever you want. You can pay, $20 is our suggested, but if you want to write a check for 1,000 or give us $1,000 or more, we're happy to take it. But if you cannot afford, we have an opportunity for you to volunteer either in the kitchen or in the neighborhood. We have different coordinators in all of our locations that work with the community to determine what there are needs for. And, it's really nice for someone to come in and bring their family to a nice sit down restaurant. We all enjoy going out and we all enjoy to have good food. And when we can bring everyone together as family, as friends, and enjoy, a meal, break bread, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful experience. But like I said earlier, 64% of our meals are, distributed, no charge. So we are always on the side of where can we find some more money? How do we get some more donations? Who can we partner with? And that's the real important. I mean, I'm the treasurer. So my number one mission is to make sure we can find revenue resources to support the program.
How do you keep people from taking advantage of it? Say a family coming over and over again, or does that happen?
It hasn't happened. People get it. People welcome it. People enjoy it. And if someone does want to come in and it kind of shows up, we had one person one night that didn't really leave, washed the dishes, cleaned up, and it was, well, time to go. And he goes, well, I have no place to go. And so we had to go, oh, okay, well, we need to have like a referral service going on. We need to work deeper with our community partners so that at the end of the night, if that situation should arise again, then we can say, well, here's some resources available locally that we can actually give you access to. The big thing is there's a lot of resources out there. If you're unhoused, most of them are not available to you because you don't have an address. Having an address is very, very helpful to the whole process. And that's why we like to get people into a house, into a shelter,
Housing is key. Housing is key.
It is. And there's many rungs on the poverty ladder. The first rung, the lowest rung, is going to be just give me a safe place tonight where I can take, whether it's a battered woman or whether it's kids that are just, not being attended. So we have, we've partnered with people that take care of teenagers and families. And then in safe homes. It might just be for a week or 2 weeks as they get stabilized. But what we see on the unhoused on the streets as we drive around is only representative of about 15 to 20% of the unhoused population. There's plenty of people that are couch surfing, plenty of people living in cars. And, so it's as much as we all think it's big by looking at what's going on in the streets, it's a much bigger challenge than you can imagine.
And it's so important that you and I and people like us have this sort of conversation. And I was so thrilled when you agreed to do this with me, and that, John Bon Jovi, he doesn't have to do something like this, but I always knew he was a good guy. And I knew he was a good guy when I started following the JBJ Soul Kitchen, but really to watch that documentary and see he was a business guy, even as a kid. I mean, even as a 19, 20-year-old rocker, he was constantly thinking, what's next? And how do we take care of business? And how do we take care of the band? And how do we take care of all of this? But you told me a little secret about him. He's a lousy cook.
If he ever invites you over to dinner, say, you know what, I'll take you out. But he's a great dishwasher. You probably see many pictures of John in the kitchen cleaning up dishes. He cleans up all the time. And, we were joking the other day how we were both back at home. We were both doing dishes. And I go, can we go back out on the road where we actually get room service or we go to restaurants? I mean, this cleaning the dishes thing is getting to be a bit old, but very much so. But you don't last 40 years at the level of success he's had without being focused, without being determined, and without being talented, of course. Talent comes first. But, you have to keep your eye on what's next. Sure, be here now, be present, enjoy the moment. But tomorrow's going to come, we hope, and you ought to be ready for it. So 40 years. Thank you. Good night. Great documentary. Happy John did it because it gives me a travel log of my life, and it allows a lot of people. People, no one wants to sit around and listen to stories, but when they can visualize it and see them, Moscow, Guadalajara, around the world, it's incredible. It really is.
And of course, a great new album out. What, Forever? Is that?
June 7th,
Yeah, yeah,
not too
coming up
far away. I
in
think
just a
that's
couple
Friday,
of
by the
days.
way. I
I
think it
was
is Friday.
listening to the I was listening to the new track this morning. It was it's yeah, it's coming out. So
Yes.
what's next? What's next? I mean, he's had the issues with his voice. He's gone through the surgery. He's doing physical therapy.
Yes, I mean, really, what it comes down to it, you have 40 years in, you're at top of your game, your legacy is secure. And the one thing for John, it's always been about quality. It's always been about doing the right thing. And if and when he's ready to tour, the band will tour. But up until that time, he's only going to do it if he can deliver, as he says, and 110%, which I think is a factor of 1.5 or something like that. But yeah, I do believe that the 40 years, the documentary speaks for themselves, and continue to do our work with the foundation. It's very, very important. It's we grow slow, we partner carefully, and we continue to deliver on the promise.
What is next for the foundation in a perfect world? Other than not having,
Right.
other than not needing the foundation? I mean, because you're helping veterans, you're helping students, and I love that you brought that up because people don't realize how much food insecurity there is. These kids are there. A lot of them are first generation,
That's true.
first to graduate from high school, first generation to go on to college. And it's very embarrassing to get off to college and tell people I don't have enough money to eat.
Yeah.
And so you're starting to attack that problem. A lot of veteran outreach. Where else do you need to expand?
Probably everywhere if you think about it. We have 2 locations with our restaurants right now. The first one is in Red Bank, New Jersey, store number 1. Store number 2 is in Toms River, New Jersey, and it's also on a nice, convenient public transportation line. But Toms River, our customer is more on the senior side. So we're finding a lot of food insecurity with seniors for whatever reason. And so our, majority of our customers down there are, getting up on in their years. And that's now, of course, it's nice to have someone cook a meal, and it's nice to have fellowship and friendship, around the table. But we were sort of surprised at how that aging process is affecting or being affected, by food insecurity. So I'd have to say, if you go from, the child to the grandparent and everywhere in between, that's our demographic. And everything's expanding, nothing's shrinking.
And we're one of the, if not the richest, most successful countries in the world. We have the best economy post-pandemic. And speaking of pandemic, you did not shut down during the pandemic. You regrouped, retooled, and did food delivery, from what I think I read.
Yes, I mean, it was a challenge, and it was poor leadership from the federal level, beyond belief. But you figure out what you can possibly do. So the 2 big things I think we did best at was, first and foremost, preparing meals in our kitchen in the safe, prescribed manner, and delivering them to the various hospitals and medical facilities where, thank goodness our medical people were dedicated to, doing their job above and beyond, well above and beyond the call of duty or their contract, however you want to take a look at it. And we wanted to give them good, solid meals because there's only so much hospital food you can eat before you end up in the hospital.
Isn't that so true?
And then
Okay.
the other one was on Long Island. There was because there's no economy going on, because there's no tourism going on, people still live there, and we were able to start a food bank that serviced. It was basically central processing. Everything came in there, and it was distributed out to the food bank. A gentleman who had an amusement park area type of situation, he was closed down. He took over his big hall and said, "Okay, here's your warehouse." And then we're able to coordinate and scramble to find the food and distribute the food. And those were the 2 And John wrote a song, if you can't do what you do what you can. It's a great song.
It is.
And it said everything that if you can't do what you do, which is basically all of us in the entertainment business couldn't do anything, do what you can. And that was the whole mantra.
Okay, let's say in a perfect world, Paul, somebody is listening to this in my wonderful hometown of Houston, Texas, where we have more James Beard nominees than any other city in the world, including New York and San Francisco. We have incredible foodies and chefs and restaurants. We have investors, we have money, we have empty restaurants. Somebody in a perfect world right now is listening to you and I have this discussion, and they're thinking like I'm thinking, we need a JBJ Soul Kitchen in Houston, Texas. Texas was such a huge part of John and Bon Jovi's success. What's the first thing somebody does? How do you start to vet a city?
Well, start with the info at JBJ Soul Foundation. And we, the team, the board, John and Dorothea, will be down there in a skinny minute to work with whatever partner. We have exported to a certain degree. Our products are exported into the universities. We don't run the kitchens at the university. They are run by the food concessionaire service company. And then we work with them to ensure that we have the right mission statement, the right food, the right quality, and the right branding. So we're ready to go. We're ready to export at any point in time. And we'd love to have great partners in every city to deliver on the promise of the JBJ Soul Foundation and kitchens.
Well, I'm a firm believer in you got to put it out there in the universe. So, hey, steel workers, I need a steel worker to join with me, and let's open a JBJ Soul Kitchen, store number 3 in Houston, Texas, because I know we definitely could do it. And you're working exclusively with the JBJ Soul Foundation. Any more rock and roll? Any more on the road, Paul?
I love the road. I just do. And there's nothing more exciting. My best part is standby house lights, go house lights. It's a culmination of a lot of work, and everybody has to dedicate themselves to ensure that that show at that time is going to go up on time. Band has to be ready, crew has to be ready, venue has to be ready. Everything has to come together. But you were there, Dayna. You know how comprehensive 360 we were with everything. Your meet and greets went perfectly well. John showed up on time. The autographs were done. The in stations were done. We are part and partners with everybody. None of this stuff happens. That 40 years didn't happen without being partners with every area of the business. And that's just the truth.
If you could go out with anybody right now, who would it be?
Bon Jovi, of course.
You've been listening to Dayna's Diner, a weekly conversation with the men and women who created your favorite classic hits. Dayna's Diner is produced by Dayna Steele and Houston Radio Platinum.